Welcome to a 10-1-10 review. My name is Nessa and today I'll be talking about Shinehill and how I felt after playing the game for 10 minutes, 1 hour, and 10 hours. Although Shinehill keeps track of how many days you have played, it does not have a calendar system where seasons change, so it does not meet the requirements for my 10-1-10-1 review, which has the added component of needing to finish 1 year in-game. As a person who does not have a lot of time to play games, I think that first impressions are important, and the first 10 minutes to an hour of a game should give you the basic rundown of what the game has to offer. That being said, I know that everyone's experiences on a game can change as they're playing, so it's important to revisit the game again at 10 hours, since at this stage I would be much more familiar with the gameplay loop and less in my honeymoon stage. I won't be rating Shinehill on a scale, but I'll definitely talk about the things that I like and the things that I wished it did differently, so that you can make an informed choice on whether this game is for you. So without further ado, let's get into the review. Shinehill, developed by Peachbite, is a 2D pixel graphic farming and life sim game with RPG elements. In this game, you can plant crops, gather resources, build relationships, cook, beat up monsters, and do everything it takes to conceal your true identity from the townsfolk. Shinehill released on March 6, 2026 to the PC and is available for $10.99 USD. You are a Kappa-like extraterrestrial being that is sent to this planet on a mission to collect biomaterial data and find out the availability of resources so that your people can determine whether or not the planet is suitable for settlement. It seems like a quick in and out mission, however, things do not go as you planned as you crash land on the island and end up being mistaken as the new farmer. It's time to figure out what happened to your spaceship while maintaining your disguise so no one knows who you really are. As of this review, I have finished the main story and seen the end title screen. In the first 10 minutes, you are introduced to how you really look like before you're able to pick a human skin costume in the character creation screen. The tutorial in this game is pretty non-invasive and subtle. There are controls that pop up to remind you what buttons and key to press, and there's a little pop-up note to give you a little more information, but beyond that, the game does not hold your hand through the beginning stages. Within the first 10 minutes, I was already intrigued about where the game was going. The premise of being an extraterrestrial landing on an alien planet and having to disguise yourself in a farming sim game is super interesting to me, and so far I was invested in the story and wanted to learn more about the planet that I landed on. I also like the two minigames that I had access to in the beginning, dodging asteroids and mind controlling bees. I haven't seen a lot of farming sim games that use minigames in the story like this before, so I really like that inclusion. I haven't been able to farm just yet in the first 10 minutes, so I was definitely curious about the farming aspects of the game. Literally, right after my 10 minutes was over, I got my tools and I was able to start working on my farm. I appreciated how fast everything felt. I was able to chop down a few trees and gather stone while still maintaining some stamina. I did run out midday, which is pretty good for starting in a farming sim game, so of course it was time to explore my surroundings. I like that the NPCs had different personalities and the 2D portraits. Unfortunately, I was disappointed that they were static and do not move around town. You can find them in the same spot whether it's raining or sunny or no matter what day it was. I spent most of my 1 hour exploring the town and the surrounding areas, foraging for items that I could sell or give to the townsfolk whenever they had a quest. I like that once I was lulled into a sense of security, an event happened where things take a turn as my character had to act to keep her secret. I really love this twist and it energized me to continue the story. Usually I would talk about systems that a game has as they're introduced, but there really isn't much to talk about in Shinehill's case since everything is pretty standard and basic compared to every other farming sim game. You till the soil, plant seed, and water them daily. I do like that the game lets you water more than one square at a time. Then when the plants are grown, you harvest them and repeat. The game does have a level up system where you can gain experience points from just playing the game, which offers improved abilities in health, energy, attack, and fishing, although I'm not really sure how much everything increases by because it doesn't really say. I was excited to continue to play Shinehill after my hour was up, mainly because I was still reeling from the shock of the events that just happened. About 2 hours in, I was connected back to headquarters and started to focus on my mission of gathering data from the island. This included just collecting resources and going back into headquarters to turn in the quest. I also unlocked the first mines where I ended up defeating a boss at the end of it. As I continued to play the game, I realized that the main story does a lot of heavy lifting, and I felt really focused when I was completing quests to advance the story. However, if it were to be removed, then there would not be much to do in the game at all. All the crops that I planted or anything I foraged was to advance the story. And it seems like the game really wanted it this way, since it's not even really focused on the farming sim aspect, as you don't even have a shipping bin on your property. It's definitely more lucrative to sell other things, as I've encountered, because some fishes are worth a lot of money and you don't have to wait a couple of days for them to grow in order to sell them. I would spend the majority of my time trying to go deeper in the mines and defeating bosses related to the main story. Although I would visit the townsfolk to talk to them or give them gifts, this was to throw off their suspicion of me, since I unlocked the ability to teleport across the island, and this will lower my disguise points. Talking and gifting NPC increases my disguise again, so I felt as though it was an obligation to talk to them to maintain my cover versus trying to really develop a relationship. But even then, I actually don't know what happens when your disguise drops to 0, since it was pretty easy to keep up. Furthermore, at a certain point, the disguise point goes away entirely, so you don't even have to worry about it anymore. Like I mentioned, there are bosses in this game, but the combat is pretty generic and comparable to other farming sim titles, where you are equipped with only a sword and you can dodge away from attacks. Enemies can be dispatched with a few swipes of your sword. Some of them have physical and ranged attacks, but beyond that, there's no specific mechanic that you need to do in order to defeat them. Just like the enemies, the bosses are not too difficult to defeat once you get the hang of dodging attacks and retaliating when there is an opening. I do like that the game changes it up so you have to defeat the bosses, and their lore was interesting once it was revealed. However, the game doesn't really go too deep due to its short length and because of the limitations of the combat system. Short of 7.5 hours and 20 days into the game, I reached the end screen, which was really surprising to me. From my experiences with farming sim games in the past, I was ready to hunker down for a good 20 to 40 hours. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do afterwards, but a bunch of quests opened up, since saving the island apparently gave me a ton of friendship points with everyone, and now everyone trusts me enough to request my assistance in helping them complete their menial chores. Completing the quest for the villagers actually took more time than I anticipated, and I managed to make it to day 40 when I hit the 10-hour mark. Since the seasons do not change in Shinehill, this concluded my time in the game. Shinehill is a really interesting concept, and I think the story wrapped it up in an okay way. I was expecting a bit more farming to happen in the game beyond using the crops that I grew to fulfill quests and advancing the story onward. Once I completed as many quests as I could, I really didn't have a compelling reason to continue to grow crops. By day 40, I was pretty much done with the game, and I was only motivated by my goal of getting married. So with that, let's talk about the things I like and the things I wish Shinehill did differently. The premise of having disguise points that go up or down depending on your actions and choices in the dialogue is really fun. I like the concept of being careful that you don't accidentally reveal yourself to the townsfolk while you're trying to do suspicious alien things. The way that the story plays out in the beginning also had me captivated by what was going to happen next. I was on the edge of my seat when someone entered the picture who could reveal my identity. I like learning more about the ancient race in the game that inhabited Shinehill Island and how that ties into the disasters that were unfolding in present time. I like the different cutscenes that you can have with the characters in town and how you can easily have a way to check whether you are close to an event. The events that I've been on so far have all been really well done. For instance, I've been able to have some coffee with Vince while watching some bunnies frolic in a field, and then go on a heart-stopping hot air balloon ride with Brian. I could feel that there was a lot of love put into these events because they were all so drastically different, and they used assets that you wouldn't see normally around town. I love using my Helpinator 3000 for the various minigames. I like sometimes they're part of the story, such as dodging the asteroids or mind controlling the bees, and I also like that they could be just a regular part of your day, such as trying to catch a bunny or a new penguin to add to your collection. The fishing minigame is probably one of my favorites in a farming sim game if there had to be a fishing minigame implemented. I just love pressing the correct arrow keys to catch a fish. It's pretty satisfying to be able to complete a long string of arrows, and the fish will sell for a good amount of money as well. I do wish that the characters were not static and would walk around town. It's very easy to find them since they're always in the same location, rain or shine, but I would love to see the town feel more lived in so I could develop that connection to the place and figure out why I want to protect it. The farming is pretty basic in the game and really negligible unless you need something specific for a quest, because I can water my plants in a few seconds and have the entire day to do things right from the beginning. The farm does feel a bit like an afterthought. There are also only a few variations of seeds that you have access to in the shops, while you have to collect the other ones by slaying monsters or foraging in the wild. Although this is a neat concept, sometimes I really didn't want to spend all day gathering enough garlic seeds to plant so I can fulfill a quest, and would really love for the town's market to start stocking seeds after I've unlocked them. I feel like the game wants to be a farming sim, but it also doesn't. The game has ingredients that you can gather for crafting, but it doesn't offer you the ability to actually craft anything except food. Furthermore, your tools do not upgrade, so mining ores doesn't really have a purpose beyond fixing teleporters, which all really need copper and not any of the other ores. It feels like a very light visual novel that's dressed up like a farming sim where you can do all these things, but the systems themselves are pretty shallowed and not fleshed out, so it really can't stand on its own as a really good game without the story to prop it up. When I first started playing Shinehill, I really thought it was going to blend farming sim and exploration, where you're trying to do your best to disguise yourself through farming and building relationships with the townsfolk so that you can carry out your mission without raising their suspicion. Although it starts really strong, it doesn't have a strong identity, and that really affects the overall experience for me and how I think about the game. I farmed with a purpose to advance the story since the farming was very easy. But once the story is concluded, there isn't much else for me to do. Shinehill is a relatively short game, and I think that I cover most of what I wanted to do. Once I hit the 10-hour mark, I don't think I'll be continuing to play unless more content is added to the game. The strongest part of the game for me was the romanceable events, because a lot of love was poured into this, where you can see the townsfolk interacting with your character in different ways when they're usually just standing around saying the same dialogue. I think you do get your money's worth for $10.99 USD if you go in with the expectation that this is not a farming simulation game and more of a visual novel adventure with some farming elements to propel the story forward. So if you focus more on just being an alien on an island instead of being an alien farmer on an island, then this game might be for you. What do you think of Shinehill? Is this the game for you? Let me know in the comments, and if you like what I do and you want to see more, consider liking and subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the review. I'm going to hang out with Chocolate the capybara while Tim is busy feeding pigeons, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.